The following program on KROC is sponsored and paid for by Meshbesher Spence.
Zach Bauer is in the house. How you doing, Zach?
Ladies.
I'm doing well. Yourself?
Good.
Very good.
It's not real nice outside today.
No, a little rainy. Hey, juries are in the news these days. Of course,
Lots
the
of
Boston
juries.
Marathon trial and
Yeah, all kinds of really interesting cases are going on, not only just Minnesota-wide, but nationwide, obviously. The biggest one being, obviously, the Boston Marathon, the jury that came back yesterday with a verdict, I believe. In a minute, we're just going to spend a little time talking maybe a little bit of how juries work here in Minnesota and kind of the differences between civil juries and criminal juries, and sometimes even differences between juries that are criminal. For instance, a felony-level jury would have 12 people on it. A misdemeanor jury only has 6 people on it, and they have to all be unanimous in criminal cases. For instance, you can't have a split of 5 people think you're guilty and one person thinks you're not guilty. It has to be unanimous one way or the other in criminal cases.
Mm-hmm. How often is there a misdemeanor trial?
Very often.
Really?
We actually have misdemeanor trial blocks in Olmsted County that last 5 days. The felony blocks usually last 2 weeks, but misdemeanor blocks last a week. And quite frankly, I would guess that probably 80% of the cases that come through the Olmsted County Courthouse are misdemeanor level offenses.
Wow.
How long does that misdemeanor case usually take?
Usually about a day and a half, 2 days, typically.
So if you're on that jury, you hear a couple of different cases because you're there for the week, or do you just hear one?
You could. Theoretically speaking, usually people when they're on jury duty are on jury duty for a period of 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So they actually may have the opportunity to hear a misdemeanor case and a felony level case.
Okay.
They may not hear any cases at
Right,
all.
right.
It's just kind of luck of the draw, so to speak, and depending on whether you're selected as part of a jury. But there's usually no limits, although I think in Olmsted County, typically judges, once you've set a couple of juries, they usually cut you loose at that point. So
Now, at what point do you get a jury trial or just go in front of a judge or a couple of judges? I don't know how that works.
Good question. So in Minnesota, if you are charged with a crime that has the potential of jail time, you are entitled to have a jury trial. If you are charged with a crime that just can be punishable by a fine only, which would be like a speeding ticket or would be like a possession of drug paraphernalia, we've talked about that before in the show, those are petty misdemeanors because they're only the largest possible sanction for them is just a fine. You're not entitled to a jury. And the reasoning behind that is because your liberty is not necessarily at issue. So the founders felt that only in that situation is a person entitled to a jury trial. Now, there are circumstances where a person has the ability to say, I don't want a jury trial. I want the judge to decide that. And that's the same in both felony cases or in misdemeanor level cases. In that situation, one judge hears your case, and they make a decision of whether you're guilty or not guilty.
Is there sometimes an advantage to that?
There can be. So there are circumstances where, for instance, if you're dealing with maybe a legal issue on a case that you feel like a jury, because the facts of the case may be put off by your client or just the general nature of the claims, and you're making an argument that it really is not a attempted murder case. It's more of a first-degree assault case. That may not be something that a jury may really be inclined to listen to, especially if you maybe have a client that you don't feel real comfortable putting in front of a jury.
Mm-hmm.
But it's more of a legal argument that maybe a judge would be in a better position given their background. It depends on who you have for a judge, obviously, but there are circumstances where a defendant may decide that they just want to have a judge instead of a jury make a decision.
Well, if anybody has questions and maybe they got a little notice in the mail about jury duty and or just has a question or need the services of an attorney from Meshbesher Spence, how do they get a hold of you?
They can reach us on the telephone at 507-280-8090 or online at www.meshbesher.com.
Very good.
Have
Zach?
you been on a jury?
Yes, I have federal jury,
Federal.
not on a state or civil.
Yeah.
Or a
me too.
It's a bucket list for me, but it probably is not going to happen.
Yeah, you get crossed
Yeah.
off. I just think it's so interesting, and
It was awesome.
people
I
will put
enjoyed
on
every minute of
Facebook,
it.
"Oh, I want to get off. How do I get off of jury duty?" And I'm like, "Don't. It's
wanna get
really
on.
interesting."
Yeah.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right,
You guys
Zach.
have a great day.
You too.
Thanks, Zach.